What separates absolute Superman from everything that came before is that he grew up on Krypton. He saw its downfall happen in real time. As such, when he comes to Earth, he is radicalized. He refuses to let the same fate befall his new home, and he travels the world standing up for the oppressed and protecting the environment. But that made him a target. The wicked Lazarus Corporation pursued him and eventually caught him. Their leader, Ra's al Ghul, wanted to convert Superman to his cause, to corrupt him and christen him Kal Al Ghul. However, they had never met someone like Superman before. While they had corrupted other aliens like Brainiac and the Parasite, Superman stood up to them and ultimately defeated them. Following Lazarus' downfall, the elites took things to the next level by unleashing their attack dog Hawkman on him. Hawkman had been a costumed vigilante in the time of World War II, and when the elites came for him, he capitulated and agreed to work for them. And he has done some very dirty work for them, like killing Oliver Queen when he tried to become a vigilante. But he always argued that the ends justified the means. He believed that the way you successfully navigate a corrupt world like theirs was by working with the monsters to try and temper their actions. But those are the words of a coward, and Superman proved this when Talia al Ghul unleashed the Parasite on Metropolis. Hawkman's violent ways failed, and he was forced to face all of the people he had killed. Superman, meanwhile, led by example and used his kindness and positivity to inspire the millions of people trapped in the Parasite's tendrils. Parasite fed on fear, and Superman just spoiled his banquet. Rather than stamping the Parasite out though, Superman took it into his care while he tried to find a way to get it back to its home planet. But the Parasite wasn't the only relic that Lazarus had in their possession. Enter King Shazam, who had been a slave boy 4,000 years ago before he was given impossible power by Darkseid's father box. He rose up to defeat his people's oppressors and would have changed the world forever if he hadn't been betrayed and imprisoned for millennia. But now he was free, and he was not happy about the state of the world. Superman, ever the diplomat, tried to reason with him, but he had no interest in negotiation. King Shazam was furious that the world was still broken, maybe even more broken than ever before, and he was going to set things right. He started by murdering Ra's al Ghul, and then turned his attention to Superman. Caught in the middle of this was John Henry Irons, a former Lazarus scientist, wearing a suit of armor and carrying a massive hammer. Just when things looked like they couldn't get any worse, enter Hawkman. And before I continue, special thanks to my channel members, the Back Issue Brigade, who helped to make this video possible. If you want to see your name on screen in future videos and get access to some exclusive videos, join the channel now. Now, it's pretty fitting that Hawkman gets involved in this fight because he was the archaeologist that discovered King Shazam's tomb for Lazarus Corp all those years ago. Shazam's tomb is also where he got his powers from, and he can speak King Shazam's language and tries to reason with him. But King Shazam calls upon his wisdom of Solomon once more and decides that Hawkman is a liar. And the funny thing is that Hawkman is many things, deluded perhaps, but he's not a liar. Since we last saw him, it actually seems like Superman has had an impact on him. He tells Talia what he saw. Superman saved millions of people through kindness, without having to raise a fist, and he starts to wonder if he's been wrong all this time. Talia thinks that he's angling for a pay rise and tells him to take his money and get out of her sight. But the interesting thing is that Hawkman donates his ill-gotten gains to charity, a museum wing, rather than profiting from it himself. He may be a stubborn old mule, but there are layers to him. However, after King Shazam attacks him, he reverts to his old tactic, thwacking King Shazam as hard as he can with his mace. This sends him flying into the atmosphere, but it only gives him a few seconds to talk with Superman. They try to strategize, but before they can agree on a course of action, Shazam returns with a fury so mighty that he could wreck the entire planet. The thunder is so loud that it registers as an earthquake. Tornadoes tear across the land. Huge hailstones shower down and satellites are knocked out of orbit. It's clear that King Shazam is just as stubborn as Hawkman and that he doesn't care about the human cost of his battle. It's fortunate then that Superman does care, and he ensures that no one dies as a result. But ultimately, King Shazam wins. He has absolute confidence in himself because he believes that his coming was prophesied by the Phantom Stranger. But Hawkman laughs in his face. All this time Shazam thought Superman was a mere tribute act, but the reality is that Shazam was Superman's opening act. Through his research as an archaeologist, he determined that the prophecy had nothing to do with King Shazam. It was all about Superman. The brainiacs that gave him his powers weren't following some grand plan. They were entertaining themselves, making up names of gods to explain the acronym that they assign his powers to. Likewise, the rulers of the time, that era's Justice League, weren't going to allow him to disrupt their rule. Looking at the three figures they show, it looks like Vandal Savage, although I suppose it could be Ra's al Ghul, Arian of Atlantis, and possibly Raven or one of her ancestors given her glowing pairs of eyes on her face. They took the father box, the source of his power, and used it to imprison him. And at that point, Superman breaks free from his shackles. In the brawl, Shazam stabs him with a lightning bolt, but before he can do any real harm, the parasite pounces upon him to drain him of his strength. Superman had been treating the parasite like a pet on his farm, and we learn that he's given him the name Psy, as in parasite, which is a nice way of humanizing the little blob. While Shazam is indisposed, Hawkman and Superman argue about what to do next. Hawkman wants to cave his skull in with his mace, but Superman refuses to kill him. And it's then that Steel steps in. He says that maybe Hawkman is right, although Superman notes that his vital signs suggest that he doesn't really believe that, which he doesn't like hearing because he knows it's true. While the heroes bicker over what to do, King Shazam breaks free of the parasite, and I guess he wasn't afraid enough to power him up, and in the process seems to pull him apart. It's not clear if he has killed the parasite, or if it'll be able to pull itself together later on. Either way, it looks like it hurt quite a lot. Turns out that King Shazam had been holding back because his next blow, which can be seen from space, takes out the 3 men. Superman is still conscious, but the others aren't quite so lucky. Hawkman is down and tells Superman to take his mace. It's made of nth metal. It will hurt him. And Steel says to take his hammer. It's made of promethium, with a miniaturized neutron star inside of it. Steel mutter that in order to survive in this world, sometimes you've just got to swing the hammer. A callback to his job at the slaughterhouse where he had to brain defenseless cows when the murder machines weren't working. Meanwhile, King Shazam takes what Hawkman said about being betrayed by the Father Box very seriously. He returns to the Lazarus facility where Lois and Talia are squabbling, and he plans to destroy the Father Box so that no one can ever use it against him again. The thing to remember about Father Box is that it is a sentient machine, technically a living being, and it screeches in agony as King Shazam tries to pull it apart. Fortunately for it, Superman arrives in time to save it. This is the perfect demonstration of his character. The Father Box is a tool of Darkseid. It has connected to Superman's mind and told him what it and its god have in mind for Earth, and yet Superman still saves it. He grabs Shazam and flings him through space onto the moon, far away from any onlookers. There's no oxygen there, so Shazam had better save his breath unless he wants to suffocate. Although with no oxygen and a minimal atmosphere, I wonder how his voice is audible to Shazam. But we shouldn't let real-world physics interrupt our enjoyment of a story about a flying alien that's come to save us all, right? But the cool reveal comes on the final page, where Superman, now wearing the Eradicator armor, wields both Hawkman's nth metal mace and Steel's neutron star hammer. He smacks Shazam around the head with the 2 weapons at once and tells him that he's not leaving the moon until he says his magic word. So this issue continues to draw comparisons between Superman and Shazam. The key difference between the two of them is that while they both look at the world and feel outrage, they respond to it very differently. Shazam lashes out in anger, he summons mighty storms and doesn't care who gets harmed in the process. The ends justify the means. Superman, meanwhile, goes the extra mile to make sure that nobody suffers. He feels that same rage, but rather than lashing out, he reaches out, even to someone like Hawkman, or the Father Box, who he finds personally odious. Superman is the example to us all on how to react to the injustices in our own life, with compassion and restraint, even if our rage can summon a storm. Absolute Superman 20 is available now from all good comic shops. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and stick around because I'll be back shortly with a video about Absolute Wonder Woman 21. Hope to see you then.